My name is Aaron Hendricks, and I'm 62 years old. For 20 years, I've been a single father to my daughter Samantha after my wife Linda passed away from cancer when Samantha was just 12. We've lived in this small apartment in Cleveland, Ohio, scraping by on my factory pension, but we've always had each other. Every week for 2 decades, I've bought the same lottery numbers, dreaming of the day we'd finally catch our break. Well, that day came when I won $125 million. But what happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about family. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments below, hit that like button if you believe family should stick together, and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, you won't believe what my own daughter did when that phone call came. Let me take you back to where this all began, because understanding my relationship with Samantha is crucial to what happened later. Linda and I met in high school right here in Cleveland. She was this bright, beautiful girl who wanted to be a teacher, and somehow she fell for a grease monkey like me who worked at the Ford plant. We got married young, had Samantha when we were 25, and for 12 wonderful years, we were the happiest little family you could imagine. Linda taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. She'd come home every day with stories about her students, her face lighting up as she talked about helping kids learn to read or solve math problems. Samantha inherited that same brightness from her mother, always curious about everything, always asking questions. I'd come home from my shifts at the plant covered in oil and tired to the bone, but seeing those 2 girls at our kitchen table would wash all the exhaustion away. Then came the diagnosis. Breast cancer, stage 3. Linda fought it with everything she had, but after 3 years of chemotherapy radiation and more hospital visits than I care to count, she lost that battle. I held her hand as she took her last breath, and I made her a promise that day. I told her I'd take care of Samantha, and someday somehow we'd have the life she'd always dreamed of for our family. Being a single father wasn't easy, especially on a factory worker's salary. I picked up every overtime shift I could get, worked weekends, did side jobs fixing cars in our apartment complex's parking lot. Samantha never complained, not once. She'd do her homework at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner, usually something simple like spaghetti or grilled cheese sandwiches. Friday nights became our tradition pizza night. Nothing fancy, just a $10 pie from the place down the street. Sunday evenings we'd watch baseball together on our old television, sharing a bowl of popcorn and talking about everything and nothing. Samantha excelled in school, just like her mother. She was always good with numbers, and when it came time for college, she earned a partial scholarship to Ohio State University for accounting. I was so proud, I cried at her graduation ceremony. She moved to Columbus after college and got a job at a mid-sized firm there. She'd visit every few weeks, but I could see she was building her own life, which was exactly what Linda and I had always wanted for her. The lottery ticket habit started during Linda's illness. She used to joke that someday we'd hit it big and travel to all the places she'd read about in her travel magazines. Paris, Italy, Ireland, where her grandmother was from. After she died, buying those same numbers every week became my way of keeping that dream alive. 714, 23, 31, 42, with Powerball, 18. I never missed a week for 20 years. Living on my pension wasn't glamorous. My apartment was a 1-bedroom place where I slept on a pull-out couch, so Samantha could have the bedroom when she visited. The furniture was mostly second-hand, and my biggest luxury was cable television, so I could watch the Indians play baseball. But I was content. I had my memories of Linda, my love for Samantha, and the simple hope that maybe, just maybe, those lottery numbers would come through. That Saturday in October started like any other. I made my morning coffee in the same chipped mug I'd been using for 15 years, sat in my recliner that Linda had bought me for my 40th birthday, and pulled up the lottery results on my old smartphone. I'd gotten into the habit of checking the numbers while drinking my first cup of coffee, usually followed by a disappointed sigh and plans for the rest of my day. But that morning was different. The first number matched. Then the second. By the third matching number, my hand started shaking. When all 5 regular numbers in the Powerball matched perfectly, I thought I was having a heart attack. I checked the numbers again, then called the lottery hotline with trembling fingers. The automated voice confirmed what I couldn't quite believe. I was $125 million richer. The first thing I did after hanging up with the lottery office was sit in complete silence for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 5 minutes. I stared at that lottery ticket like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. My mind raced through 20 years of struggles, of wondering how I'd pay for Samantha's school supplies, of choosing between fixing my car and buying groceries, of lying awake at night, worrying about what would happen to her if something happened to me. I called the lottery hotline 3 more times just to be absolutely certain. Each time, the patient representative confirmed the same impossible truth. "Congratulations, Mr. Hendricks. You are indeed our newest jackpot winner. Please keep your ticket in a safe place and contact our office on Monday morning to begin the claim process." The first person I wanted to share this news with was Samantha. My hands were still shaking as I dialed her number, and when she answered with her usual cheerful, "Hi, Dad," I almost couldn't get the words out. "Honey," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to sit down." "Dad, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Everything's right. I just checked the lottery numbers and we won. We actually won." There was silence on the other end, then nervous laughter. "Dad, that's not funny. You know I worry about your mental health living alone in that apartment." "Samantha, I'm serious. I'm looking at the ticket right now. I'm going to text you a picture." With fumbling fingers, I managed to take a photo of the winning ticket next to the official numbers on my phone screen and send it to her. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Then I heard what sounded like a glass breaking followed by screaming. Not scared screaming, but pure joy screaming. "Oh my God. Dad, oh my God, are you serious? This is real. We're millionaires. $125 million, honey. After taxes, it'll be about $75 million, but yes, we're rich." What happened next was the most beautiful conversation we'd had since her mother died. Samantha cried tears of joy as we talked about all the things we could do. We could buy a real house, maybe one of those nice places in the suburbs with a big yard. We could travel to all those places Linda had dreamed about. We could set up a college scholarship in her mother's name. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to worry about money. And more importantly, I could give my daughter everything she deserved. "I'm driving up from Columbus right now," Samantha said. "Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. Don't do anything until I get there. We need to be smart about this, Dad. This is our chance to change everything." She arrived 3 hours later, but she wasn't alone. She brought her boyfriend Derek Morrison, a man I'd only met twice before. Derek was 35, tall and lean, with perfectly styled hair and an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month at the factory. He worked at some big law firm in Columbus and always seemed to be checking his phone or talking about important cases he was handling. "Dad, I hope you don't mind that I brought Derek," Samantha said, as they walked into my small apartment. "He has experience with financial planning and legal issues. I thought it would be good to have his expertise." I didn't mind not initially. I was just happy to share this moment with the 2 people who mattered most to my daughter. Derek congratulated me warmly and seemed genuinely excited about our good fortune. But as we sat around my small kitchen table, looking at that lottery ticket, I noticed something change in the room's energy. "Aaron," Derek said, pulling out his laptop. "This is an incredible opportunity, but we need to be very strategic about how we handle this. There are tax implications, investment opportunities, and frankly, security concerns that we need to address immediately." The way he said "we" struck me as odd, but I pushed the feeling aside. Derek began showing us charts and graphs about lottery winners who had squandered their fortunes, horror stories about people who ended up broke within 5 years. He talked about setting up trusts, making smart investments, and protecting our newfound wealth from what he called predators and gold diggers. As Derek spoke, I watched my daughter's face transform. The simple joy and excitement I'd heard in her voice over the phone was being replaced by something more calculating, more serious. She was nodding along with Derek's every word, asking questions about tax shelters and investment portfolios that I didn't even understand. "The most important thing," Derek continued, "is that we don't make any rash decisions. Samantha, given your background in accounting, you'd be the logical choice to manage the financial aspects of this windfall. Your father's been through a lot of stress lately with retirement and living on a fixed income. The last thing we want is for him to be overwhelmed by the complexities of managing this kind of wealth." Something cold settled in my stomach as I listened to them discuss my life and my money as if I weren't sitting right there. But I told myself I was being paranoid. These were the people who loved me most in the world, and they were just trying to help. That evening, Derek transformed my tiny kitchen table into what looked like a corporate boardroom. He'd brought a briefcase full of documents, his laptop, and a legal pad covered in notes he'd apparently made during the drive from Columbus. The excitement of the day was slowly being replaced by what Derek kept calling the business of wealth management. "Aaron, I've been thinking about this all afternoon," Derek said, spreading papers across the table. "We need to establish a comprehensive financial strategy before you claim this money on Monday. The worst thing lottery winners do is take the money and start spending it without a plan." Samantha sat beside him, her accounting training clearly engaged, as she reviewed the documents he'd prepared. "Dad, Derek's right. We need to think about this systematically. This isn't just about having money. It's about preserving and growing wealth for our future and for future generations." I appreciated their concern, I really did. But listening to them talk, I felt like I was disappearing from my own life. This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. And instead, I was sitting in my own home feeling like a child who needed adults to make decisions for him. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked, trying to maintain some sense of control over the situation. Derek pulled out a thick document. "I've drafted some preliminary paperwork to protect your interests. First, we should set up a limited liability company to claim the prize. That provides privacy and tax advantages. Second, we should establish a trust with Samantha as the primary trustee, given her financial background, and the fact that you're at an age where estate planning becomes crucial." "A trust?" I asked. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means the money is protected," Samantha explained, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "It means if anything happens to you, or if anyone tries to take advantage of you, the money is safe. And it means we can make smart investment decisions without the emotional stress of managing day-to-day finances affecting your retirement." Derek nodded approvingly. "Exactly. And given the significant tax implications, having Samantha as the trustee makes sense. She can work with my firm to ensure everything is handled properly. You'd still have access to whatever money you need, but the bulk of the wealth would be professionally managed and protected." I looked at my daughter, searching her face for the girl who used to sit on my lap while I read her bedtime stories, the teenager who'd cry on my shoulder when boys broke her heart, the young woman who'd called me crying with joy just hours earlier. But the person sitting across from me seemed different, more distant, more focused on numbers and strategies than on the simple dream we'd shared. "I don't know," I said slowly. "This is all happening very fast. Maybe we should just take the money, put most of it in savings, and figure things out as we go." Derek's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Aaron, I understand this feels overwhelming, but time is not our friend here. Every day we delay implementing proper financial structures is a day we're losing money to taxes and missed investment opportunities. The window for optimal tax planning is very narrow." "Dad," Samantha added, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before, slightly patronizing and impatient. "You've worked so hard your whole life, and you've never had to deal with this kind of money. Let us handle the complicated stuff, so you can just enjoy your retirement." Something in her voice reminded me of the way people talked to residents at the nursing home, where Linda had spent her final weeks. Kind, but condescending. Loving, but dismissive of the person's ability to make their own decisions. Over the next several hours, they presented document after document for me to review and sign. Derek explained each one in terms that sounded reasonable, but felt increasingly like I was signing away pieces of my own life. There were power of attorney documents, trust agreements, and investment authorizations. Each time I hesitated or asked questions, they'd exchange glances and patiently explain why these steps were necessary for my own protection. By the time we finished, it was nearly midnight, and I was exhausted. Derek and Samantha had booked a hotel room for the night, since they planned to accompany me to the lottery office first thing Monday morning. As they packed up their papers, Derek mentioned something that should have been a red flag. "Oh, and Aaron, we should probably discuss living arrangements. This apartment isn't going to be safe for someone in your position. We've already looked into some options for more secure housing, at least temporarily, while we get everything set up properly." "What kind of options?" I asked. "There's a beautiful senior community in Florida," Samantha said brightly. "Full security, all amenities included, and you'd be around people your own age. It might be exactly what you need while we handle all the financial and legal complexities up here." I wanted to protest, to say that I didn't want to leave Cleveland, that this was where Linda was buried, where all my memories lived. But I was too tired to fight, and they seemed so certain that they were protecting me. I told myself that maybe they were right. Maybe I was too old and too set in my ways to handle this kind of change properly. As they left for their hotel, Samantha kissed my forehead the way she used to when she was little. "Get some rest, Dad. Tomorrow's going to change our lives forever." She had no idea how right she was, but not in the way any of us expected. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, typical October weather in Cleveland. I woke up early, as I always did. But instead of my usual quiet coffee and newspaper routine, I found Derek and Samantha at my door at 7 a.m. sharp, both dressed in business attire and carrying briefcases like we were heading to a corporate merger instead of collecting lottery winnings. "Ready for the big day, Dad?" Samantha asked. But her smile seemed different, somehow more professional than personal. The Ohio Lottery Commission office was downtown, in a building I'd driven past thousands of times on my way to the factory, but never imagined I'd have reason to enter. Derek had called ahead and arranged everything. We were ushered into a private office where officials had already prepared the paperwork based on the documents Derek had submitted the previous evening. The lottery director, a pleasant woman named Margaret Foster, congratulated me warmly and explained the process. "Mr. Hendricks, after taxes and choosing the lump sum option, your prize comes to approximately $75 million. This is the largest single winner jackpot in Ohio history." Sitting in that office, holding the check with more zeros than I'd ever imagined possible, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite process. There was joy, certainly, and relief that I'd never have to worry about money again. But there was also something else, a nagging sense that I was losing control of something that should have been the most empowering moment of my life. Derek handled most of the conversation with the lottery officials, explaining the trust structure and providing banking information for the account they'd set up. I signed where they told me to sign, smiled for the photographers, and answered questions from the reporters who'd gathered to document the story of the retired factory worker who'd hit it big. "What are you going to do with the money, Mr. Hendricks?" one reporter asked. Before I could answer, Derek stepped in. "The family is focused on responsible financial planning and ensuring this windfall provides security for future generations. Mr. Hendricks is looking forward to a comfortable retirement while his daughter manages the investment strategy." I noticed he said the family and not Mr. Hendricks, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the media and lottery officials. After the official ceremony, we went directly to First National Bank, where Derek had arranged to open the accounts that would hold the prize money. The bank president himself handled our transaction, treating us like visiting royalty. But once again, most of the conversation seemed to be between Derek and the banking officials, with occasional input from Samantha about account structures and investment options. When the bank president asked for my signature on the account documents, I discovered that while the main account was in my name, Samantha had been added as a co-signer with full access rights. Derek explained this as a security measure and estate planning tool, but I was beginning to feel like a passenger in my own life. "This allows Samantha to handle transactions without bothering you with every little detail," Derek explained as I hesitated over the signature line. "Think of her as your financial manager. You still have complete access to your money, but she can handle the day-to-day investment decisions and administrative tasks." To celebrate, Derek insisted on taking us to lunch at the most expensive restaurant in Cleveland, a place called the Silver Swan, where I'd never dreamed of eating. The wine Derek ordered cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. As we sat in the elegant dining room surrounded by crystal glasses and white tablecloths, I should have felt like I was living a dream. Instead, I felt like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Derek and Samantha dominated the conversation, discussing investment strategies, tax shelters, and plans for optimizing the family's financial position. When I tried to interject with ideas about the simple things I'd always wanted to do, like visiting Linda's gravesite in Ireland or setting up a small scholarship fund in her memory, they'd nod politely and then steer the conversation back to more practical concerns. "Those are lovely ideas, Dad," Samantha said when I mentioned the scholarship fund. "But we need to be strategic about charitable giving for maximum tax benefits. Derek's firm can help us set up a proper foundation structure that would be much more effective than just giving money to a school." Everything I wanted to do had to be filtered through their expertise, their planning, their vision of what my money should accomplish. After lunch, as we drove back to my apartment, Derek brought up the subject I'd been dreading. "Aaron, we really need to address the security situation. Your current living arrangement isn't safe for someone in your position. We've found a wonderful place in Boca Raton where you'd have full-time security medical care on site and all the amenities you could want." "I don't want to move to Florida," I said firmly. "This is my home. This is where Linda is buried. This is where my life is." The car fell silent for a moment. Then Samantha turned around from the front passenger seat to face me. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly about this. People will find out where you live. You could be robbed, kidnapped, or worse. We're trying to protect you. From what I've lived in that neighborhood for 30 years, those are my neighbors, my friends." "Your neighbors who are probably already talking about your lottery win," Derek said coldly. Your friends who are probably wondering how they can get a piece of your fortune. You don't understand how money changes everything, Aaron. Everyone you thought you could trust will see you differently now. As we pulled up to my apartment building, I saw what Derek meant. There were news vans on the street and reporters waiting by the entrance. Word had obviously gotten out about my lottery win, and my quiet little neighborhood was suddenly a circus. "See," Derek said triumphantly, "this is exactly what we were talking about. You can't live like this anymore." The confrontation that would change everything began the moment we walked into my apartment and found it crawling with strangers. Derek had apparently arranged for a security assessment team to evaluate my living situation, and they'd let themselves in with a key Derek had somehow obtained. 2 men in suits were photographing my belongings, while a woman with a clipboard was making notes about security vulnerabilities. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my temper finally reaching its breaking point. "Dad, please calm down," Samantha said, but her tone was the kind you'd use with an unreasonable child. "Derek arranged for a professional security evaluation. They're just trying to keep you safe. I didn't ask for this. I didn't give anyone permission to be in my home." Derek stepped forward with his hands raised in a calming gesture that only made me angrier. "Aaron, I understand you're feeling overwhelmed, but this is standard procedure for lottery winners. We need to document the security risks before we can implement proper protection measures." "Get them out," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Get them out of my home right now." The security team exchanged glances with Derek, who nodded. As they packed up their equipment, Derek pulled out another set of documents. "While they finish up, we should review the housing options we've identified. We can't wait much longer to make this transition." He spread out brochures for senior communities in Florida, all featuring smiling elderly people playing golf and sitting by pools. The places looked nice enough, but they weren't home. They weren't where I wanted to spend whatever years I had left. "I'm not moving to Florida," I stated flatly. "I'm staying right here in Cleveland. This is where I belong." That's when Samantha's mask finally slipped. "Dad, stop being so stubborn. You're not thinking about this logically. You can't stay in this tiny apartment when you're worth $75 million. It's not practical. It's not safe, and frankly, it's embarrassing." "Embarrassing to who?" I asked. "To our family, Derek's partners, my colleagues. Everyone knows about our situation now. What are people going to think if my father is still living in some run-down apartment in a rough neighborhood?" I stared at my daughter, trying to find some trace of the girl I'd raised. The woman who'd cried tears of joy just yesterday when she learned about our lottery win. What people think. "Since when do you care more about what strangers think than about what makes me happy? This isn't about happiness, Dad. This is about responsibility. You have a fortune now, and that comes with obligations. You can't just keep living like you're still some factory worker on a pension." Derek moved closer to Samantha, and I realized they were presenting a united front against me. "Aaron, let me be very clear about the situation. The money is in a trust structure that protects it from being squandered on emotional decisions. Samantha has the authority to make financial choices that are in the family's best interest. If you won't cooperate with reasonable security measures, we may have to consider other options." "What other options?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. "Legal guardianship," Derek said calmly. "If you're determined to make choices that put yourself and your family's financial security at risk, the courts can step in to protect your interests." The room spun around me. "You're threatening to have me declared incompetent." Samantha's face crumpled for just a moment, and I thought I saw a flash of the daughter I remembered. But Derek placed his hand on her shoulder, and her expression hardened again. "Dad, nobody wants it to come to that. Just be reasonable. Move somewhere safe. Let us handle the money properly and everything will be fine. You'll have everything you need, and you won't have to worry about anything." everything except my freedom. Everything except my choice about where to live and how to spend my own money. It's not your money anymore, Aaron, Derek said quietly. Legally speaking, it belongs to the trust. Samantha is the trustee, which means she has a fiduciary responsibility to manage it properly, even if that means overruling your emotional attachments to places and situations that no longer make sense for your financial position. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. All those documents I'd signed trusting that my daughter and her boyfriend were protecting me had actually been the instruments of my own disenfranchisement. I'd signed away control of my own life. Samantha, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, please look me in the eye and tell me you think this is right. My daughter met my gaze for just a moment before looking away. Dad, if you can't trust me to make good decisions about our family's future, maybe you should leave until you come to your senses. Derek's found you a beautiful place where you can think clearly without all these distractions. This is my home, I said one final time. Not anymore, she replied, and those two words cut deeper than any physical blow ever could. Derek made a phone call, and within 15 minutes, the same security team that had been photographing my apartment returned this time to escort me out. They were polite but firm as they supervised me packing a single suitcase with basic necessities. As I stood at my own front door, holding everything I was being allowed to take from my life, I looked back at Samantha one more time. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become. I saw her flinch, but she didn't respond. She didn't even look at me as I was led away from the only home I'd known for decades, carrying my worldly possessions in a bag like some kind of refugee. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on a bench outside my apartment building, watching the news vans pack up their equipment. I'd gone from millionaire to homeless in the span of a single conversation. The November wind cut through my jacket, and I realized I had nowhere to go, and no way to access the money that was supposed to have changed my life for the better. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Ohio Lottery Commission, and for a moment I thought they might be calling to congratulate me again or to ask about some administrative detail. I almost didn't answer. Sitting on that cold bench, clutching my suitcase, and feeling more alone than I had since the day Linda died, I wasn't sure I could handle talking to anyone about my good fortune. Hello, I answered, my voice hollow. Mr. Hendricks. This is Margaret Foster from the Ohio Lottery Commission. I'm afraid I have some very difficult news to share with you. My heart stopped. What kind of news? Sir, there's been a mistake with your lottery claim. A very serious mistake. The world tilted around me. What do you mean a mistake? Our computer system experienced a malfunction yesterday that affected the number display on our website. The winning numbers that appeared when you checked your ticket were incorrect. The actual winning numbers were 7, 14, 23, 31, 43, with Powerball 18. Your ticket shows 42 as the fourth number, not 43. I couldn't breathe. Are you saying I didn't win? I'm so sorry, Mr. Hendricks. The real winner came forward this morning with the correct ticket. We've verified their claim, and they are the legitimate winner of the $125 million jackpot. We need you to return the check immediately, as it was issued in error. I don't remember dropping the phone, but I must have, because the next thing I knew, it was lying on the sidewalk beside the bench, and I could hear Margaret Foster's voice calling my name from the speaker. 20 years of buying the same numbers. 20 years of dreaming about this moment. 20 years of believing that someday, somehow Linda and I would get our happy ending even if she couldn't be here to see it. And it had all been a computer error. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing what this meant for Samantha and Derek. They'd spent my money, borrowed against it, made commitments and investments based on wealth that had never actually existed. And more devastatingly, they'd revealed who they truly were when they thought I was rich. With shaking hands, I picked up the phone. "Mrs. Foster." "I'm still here. Mr. Hendricks, I cannot tell you how sorry we are about this error. Nothing like this has ever happened in the history of our lottery system. We'll need you to come in as soon as possible to return the check and sign some documentation about the mistake." "The check hasn't been cashed yet," I said numbly. "It's in an account at First National Bank." "That's good. We'll coordinate with the bank to reverse the transaction. Again, sir, we are profoundly sorry for this error and any inconvenience it may have caused." Inconvenience. I'd lost my home, my relationship with my daughter, and my faith in the person I'd loved most in the world, and they called it an inconvenience. After hanging up, I sat in the cold November air for several minutes trying to process what had just happened. Then, with trembling fingers, I dialed Samantha's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice still carrying that cold, distant tone from our argument. "Dad, if you're calling to apologize and be reasonable about the housing situation, I'm willing to listen." "Samantha," I said quietly, "the Lottery Commission just called." "What did they want, some kind of follow-up paperwork?" "There was a mistake. A computer error. I didn't actually win the lottery." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. "What do you mean?" she finally whispered. "The numbers on the website were wrong when I checked them. The real winning number was 43, not 42. Someone else won. The check I received was issued in error, and I have to return it." I heard what sounded like something breaking in the background, followed by Derek's voice asking what was wrong. "Derek," Samantha said, and I could hear the panic rising in her voice. "Dad says there was a mistake. He says he didn't actually win the lottery." More silence. Then Derek's voice, much closer to the phone now. "Put it on speaker, Samantha." "Aaron." "What exactly did the Lottery Commission tell you?" I repeated Margaret Foster's explanation, hearing my own words, as if they were coming from someone else's mouth. Each detail felt like another nail being driven into the coffin of my relationship with my daughter. "Oh, God," Derek said. And for the first time since I'd met him, his composed facade cracked completely. "Oh, God. We're in serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. I may have made some premature financial commitments based on the expected lottery proceeds. "What kind of commitments?" "Loans. High-yield short-term loans from private lenders who don't typically work with traditional banking institutions." "How much?" $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. $2 million. How could you borrow $2 million against money that didn't exist yet? The lottery win was verified. We had official documentation. These lenders specialize in asset-backed loans for lottery winners. It's a common practice. But I could hear the panic in his voice, the realization that his expertise had led him into a trap that might destroy all of our lives. Samantha got back on the phone, and when she spoke, her voice was small and broken, like the little girl who used to have nightmares and crawl into bed with Linda and me. "Dad, I'm scared. What are we going to do?" For the first time in 2 days, she sounded like my daughter again. What followed was the longest, most painful conversation of my life. Over the next hour, as I sat on that bench in the growing darkness, the full scope of Derek's financial manipulations began to unfold. The $2 million he'd borrowed was just the beginning. Using the lottery documentation and the trust papers I'd signed, Derek had convinced 3 different private lending companies that our family was about to receive a massive windfall. These weren't traditional banks with strict regulatory oversight, but specialized firms that made high-risk, high-reward loans to lottery winners, real estate developers, and other clients with unusual financial situations. I put the money into 3 different investment vehicles. Derek explained, his voice tight with panic. High-yield opportunities that would have tripled our investment within 6 months. It was supposed to be a way to maximize your lottery winnings, not replace them. What kind of investments? I asked, though I was beginning to understand that the details didn't really matter anymore. Currency speculation, some emerging market funds, and a private equity deal involving medical device patents. All legitimate, all with excellent projected returns. And how much of that $2 million is left? The silence told me everything I needed to know. The currency speculation went wrong when the European markets shifted last week, Derek admitted. The emerging market fund collapsed when there was political instability in 3 of the target countries, and the medical device deal fell through when the FDA rejected the patent applications. So it's gone. All of it. Not all of it. Maybe 20% is tied up in assets that could potentially be recovered over time, but you need to repay $2 million to people who probably aren't very understanding about market fluctuations. Aaron, these aren't traditional lenders. They have very specific ideas about collateral recovery. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what Linda would have thought about all this. Her daughter, the child she'd died trying to protect, was now potentially in danger because of decisions made in pursuit of money that had never existed in the first place. Samantha, are you still there? I'm here, Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. Tell me the truth. How much of this was Derek's idea, and how much was yours? Dad, The truth, honey. I wanted us to be rich, she said, and I could hear her crying. Not just lottery winner rich, but really truly wealthy. Derek showed me how we could take your winnings and turn them into generational wealth, enough money to last for our children and grandchildren. I thought I was being smart and throwing me out, making me feel like I couldn't make decisions about my own life. Was that part of being smart? Derek said that most lottery winners make terrible financial decisions because they think emotionally instead of logically. He said that if we let you control the money, you'd give too much away to charity and spend too much on sentimental things that wouldn't build wealth. So you decided I couldn't be trusted with my own fortune. I thought I was protecting our future, she sobbed. I thought I was doing what Mom would have wanted me to do. Your mother, I said quietly, would have wanted you to be kind. She would have wanted you to treat people, especially your family, with respect and love. She never cared about being rich, Samantha. She cared about being happy, about having enough, about taking care of the people she loved. I know that now, she whispered. Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. It's like the money made me into someone I don't even recognize. The money was never real, honey. But the way you treated me was very real. Derek got back on the phone. Aaron, we can work through the personal issues later. Right now we have a serious problem with these loans. The lenders are expecting repayment within 30 days, and they have legal claims against the trust assets. What trust assets? The money was never real. They don't know that yet. And when they find out, they're going to want to recover their loans from whatever assets they can claim. That means they could come after Samantha's house, her savings, maybe even garnish her wages. The weight of the situation settled over me like a lead blanket. My daughter, the person I loved most in the world, was potentially facing financial ruin and possibly physical danger because of greed that had been triggered by money we'd never actually possessed. What do you need me to do? I asked. Dad, no, Samantha said immediately. You don't have to fix this. This is our mistake. You're my daughter, I replied simply. Your problems are my problems. That's what family means. And for the first time in 2 days, those words felt true again. The next morning, I met Samantha at a coffee shop near my old apartment building. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Her eyes red and puffy, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. When she saw me walking toward her table, she stood up and burst into tears. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she sobbed as I held her. "I'm so sorry for everything." "I know, honey. I know." We sat down, and for a few minutes we just held hands across the small table, like we used to do when she was little, and something had scared her. Finally, she looked up at me with Linda's eyes and said, "How do we fix this? Tell me everything," I said. Every detail about these loans, these lenders, what Derek actually did with the money. I can't help if I don't understand the whole situation. Over the next hour, Samantha walked me through the financial nightmare that Derek had created. The $2 million had been borrowed from 3 different companies: Apex Capital Solutions, Meridian Private Lending, and something called Executive Asset Partners. Each loan carried interest rates between 18 and 24% annually, with 30-day terms that could be extended for additional fees. Derek had used the lottery documentation to prove expected income and the trust papers to show that Samantha had authority to manage family assets. He'd also provided his own financial statements from his law practice as additional collateral, but that was a fraction of the total loan amount. "Where is Derek now?" I asked. "Gone," Samantha said bitterly. When he realized the scope of the problem yesterday, he packed his things and left Columbus. He said he needed to consult with colleagues about legal options, but I think he just ran. Has he been answering his phone? No. And when I called his law firm this morning, they said he'd taken an indefinite leave of absence for personal reasons. So my daughter was facing this crisis alone, abandoned by the man who'd created it. The parallel to Linda's cancer battle wasn't lost on me, both my wife and daughter facing their darkest moments, while the people they'd trusted proved unreliable. "Samantha, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Apart from these loans, do you have any other debts or obligations that were based on the lottery money?" She nodded miserably. "I quit my job yesterday. I thought we were rich, so I told my boss exactly what I thought about him and the company. And Derek and I put a deposit down on a house in an exclusive neighborhood outside Columbus. It was $200,000. $200,000 deposit. The house was $4.5 million. Derek said it would be an appropriate residence for a lottery winner's family and a good investment property. The deposit is non-refundable if we can't complete the purchase in 60 days. I felt my heart sink even further. Anything else? I may have mentioned our lottery win to a few people at work before I quit, and Derek told his partners at the law firm. So word is spreading that we came into money, which means people are going to expect to see lifestyle changes. And when they don't see those changes, everyone will know that something went wrong. My reputation in the accounting field could be destroyed if word gets out that I made major financial decisions based on a lottery win that wasn't real. As we talked, I began to understand that this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my daughter's entire life, her career, her standing in her community, potentially even her safety. If these private lenders decided to pursue aggressive collection methods. "Dad," she said quietly, "I keep thinking about what you said yesterday about Mom being ashamed of what I've become. You're right. She would be ashamed. But I think she'd be even more ashamed if I didn't try to make this right." "How do you want to make it right?" "I want to come home. Back to Cleveland, back to our old life. I want to find a job here and help take care of you the way I should have been doing all along. I don't care if I have to live in that tiny apartment and eat pizza every Friday night for the rest of my life. I just want my family back." "What about Derek?" "Derek can deal with the consequences of his own decisions. I'm done letting other people make choices about my life and my family." And the lenders. I don't know, Dad. I honestly don't know how we're going to handle that part. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw not the greedy, manipulative person she'd become over the past few days, but the scared, repentant young woman who needed her father's help. Linda had always said that love meant standing by the people you care about when they make mistakes, not just when they make you proud. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. The plan I outlined to Samantha wasn't complicated, but it would require both courage and sacrifice from both of us. First, we needed to contact each of the lending companies and explain the situation honestly. This would be humiliating and potentially dangerous, but it was better than letting them discover the truth on their own and assume they'd been deliberately defrauded. We tell them exactly what happened, I explained. We show them the Lottery Commission's documentation about the computer error. We explain that Derek made these loans without either of our knowledge, based on false information, and we offer to work out reasonable repayment plans based on what we can actually afford. Dad, what can we actually afford? You're living on a pension, and I just quit my job. I've been thinking about that. My pension isn't much, but it's steady, and I own my apartment outright. I bought it with Linda's life insurance money after she died. We could sell it and move to something smaller, use the equity to make a significant payment toward these debts. I can't let you sell your home because of my mistakes. Samantha, it's not your home anymore. Remember, Derek made sure of that when he had me thrown out. But more importantly, it's just a place. You and I, we're family. That's what's important. What about my house in Columbus? We'll have to sell that too, probably at a loss since you'll be in a hurry, and we'll have to forfeit the deposit on the house Derek convinced you to buy. But if we're honest with these lenders and show them we're taking concrete steps to repay what we can, they might be willing to work with us. And if they're not, then we'll deal with whatever comes next, but we'll deal with it together. The conversation with Apex Capital Solutions was as difficult as I'd expected. When I explained the situation to their representative, a man named Marcus Webb, who spoke in the kind of measured tones that suggested he'd heard every excuse in the book, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Hendricks, are you telling me that your daughter and her boyfriend borrowed $2 million based on lottery winnings that never existed? That's exactly what I'm telling you. We have documentation from the Ohio Lottery Commission confirming the computer error, and we're prepared to provide bank records showing that the erroneous check was never cashed. And you expect us to simply write off our loan because of this alleged computer error. I expect you to verify our story, which you can do with a single phone call to the Lottery Commission. And I expect you to work with us on a repayment plan that reflects our actual financial situation, not the fictional wealth that Derek Morrison represented to you. The calls to Meridian Private Lending and Executive Asset Partners went similarly. Each lender was initially skeptical, then increasingly concerned, as they realized the implications of what we were telling them. None of them had ever encountered a situation where lottery winnings had been misrepresented due to a technical error. But something interesting happened during these conversations. When I explained that I was a retired factory worker who had been manipulated by my daughter's boyfriend into signing documents I didn't understand, and that my daughter was a victim of the same manipulation, the lenders' attitudes began to shift. They were still angry about their money, but they recognized that we were being honest about our situation, rather than trying to hide or deny our obligations. Marcus Webb called me back that evening. Mr. Hendricks, we've verified your story with the Lottery Commission and with First National Bank. This is an unprecedented situation for our company, but we appreciate your straightforward approach to resolving it. What does that mean in practical terms? It means we're willing to work out a payment plan based on your actual assets and income. We'll need documentation of your pension bank statements and a formal assessment of your real estate holdings. But we're not going to pursue aggressive collection actions as long as you maintain with efforts to repay what you can. Similar arrangements were made with the other two lenders. It would take years to pay off the debts, and it would require selling both my apartment and Samantha's house in Columbus. But it was manageable. More importantly, it was honest. 2 weeks later, Samantha moved back to Cleveland. She found a small apartment near mine and took a job with a local accounting firm that paid significantly less than her previous position, but offered the stability and predictability that our new reality required. The most difficult moment came when we had to explain to Linda's sister Margaret what had happened. Margaret had always been skeptical of Derek, and when we told her the whole story, she simply shook her head and said, "Your mother always said that money reveals who people really are, not who they pretend to be." But she also said something else that meant more to both Samantha and me. Linda would be proud that you two found your way back to each other. That's what she cared about most, having families stick together when things got hard. 3 months after the lottery that never was, Samantha and I resumed our Friday night pizza tradition. We were eating at my kitchen table, the same table where Derek had spread out all his financial documents and convinced us that we needed his expertise to manage our fortune. "Dad," Samantha said, "I know this sounds crazy considering everything we've been through, but I'm happier now than I was when we thought we were rich." "Why does that sound crazy?" "Because we're broke. I'm working at a job that pays half what I used to make. You sold your apartment, and we're both living in places that are smaller than what we had before. Objectively, our lives are worse." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw something that had been missing during those terrible days, when we thought we were millionaires. I saw peace. I saw the person Linda had raised, the woman who valued kindness over wealth and family over status. "Our lives are different," I said, "but they're not worse. We know who we are now. We know what matters, and we know that we can trust each other, which is more than we could say a few months ago. I still feel terrible about how I treated you, and I feel terrible about how easily I let Derek convince me to sign away my independence. We both made mistakes, honey, but we learned from them, and we're stronger now because of what we went through. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the lottery win had been real? Every day. But I think I know what would have happened. Derek would have gotten richer, you would have gotten more distant, and I would have gotten more irrelevant to my own life. The money would have changed us in ways that couldn't be undone. And instead, we learned that the most valuable thing we have is each other. And unlike lottery winnings, nobody can take that away from us with a computer error. As we cleaned up the dishes that night, I realized that Linda's dream had come true after all. Not the dream about money and travel and material comfort, but the dream that mattered most to her, that her family would take care of each other, no matter what challenges life threw at us. Sometimes, the greatest fortune is losing the one you thought you wanted and finding the one you actually needed. I may never be a millionaire, but I'm rich in the ways that count. I have my daughter back, I have my integrity intact, and I have the knowledge that when tested by extraordinary circumstances, our family chose love over greed. That's a lottery win that no computer error can ever take away. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a situation where money changed how people treated you or your family? How do you think you would handle suddenly coming into a large amount of money? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about the choices that define us and the relationships that sustain us. And please share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the best thing that can happen to a family is discovering that they don't need anything more than each other. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.